influence and persuasion, it's really just about getting people to say yes. One study, they were in South America, they were talking to McDonald's franchises. The goal is to sell more dessert. The control case, you walk up to the counter and say, hey, I'd like a burger and fries, and they would say, and would you like dessert? Then in the experimental case, people would walk up, I'll have my fries, my burger, and they would say, okay, would you like dessert? The McFlurry is our most popular. Sales went up 48% of desserts.
Wow, that's really good.
People thought that economies were run rationally and that humans made decisions, for the most part, rationally. Well, it turns out about 95% of our brains are running on that autopilot. And so what Dr. Cialdini did is he researched the 7 principles of persuasion that help us use that automatic brain to persuade people to say yes more often.
This is brilliant, and I'm fascinated. I've been at this a long time and read a lot of books, but not these.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Martin, I've only dived surface level. I've entered the shallow end of Robert Cialdini. I was saying Cialdini,
Yep.
but read a little bit of Influence, heard great things about it. Read a little bit of Persuasion, heard great things about it. I think even just the little that I've read, like 2 or 3 chapters of each book, has been helpful. But we've got an expert here today, so certified trainer in the principles of his. So Tara, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Martin, have you read these books before?
I have not, and I'm fascinated. I've been at this a long time and read a lot of books, but not these. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Robert Kiyosaki. Cialdini. I said, well, that's a different. But
Yeah, very
I actually
different.
happen to have notes that are from Cialdini that I produced, and I didn't even notice they weren't Kiyosaki. So I'm going to learn as much as everybody else. Hopefully
Awesome.
I can ask some questions for in their place, because fascinating topic.
Yeah, for sure. Tara, how did you get into this?
So Robert Cialdini wrote his book or published his book in the 80s. And it was right around the time that I was coming into my university years. I was doing some sales work and I was trying to figure out how to do it, and ran across these books. Flash forward many, many years later, and they were offering a course to become a certified trainer in the principles. And I just think it's totally fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that most of my work is just working with contractors and helping them with their foundational systems, cash flow forecasting and budgets and dashboards and job descriptions and things like that. That's my day job. But I just think this influence stuff is so fascinating. And so I jumped down the rabbit hole.
Wow. Well, we do want to hear about some of the work that you do. Let's maybe start with the principles, though. So
Yeah.
let's dive in. Where do you typically start when someone's like, well, what is all this stuff? How do you describe it?
Yeah, well, basically, most people will agree with the statement that their work life and even their home life would be drastically improved if they could get people to say yes to them more frequently. And, I know that, my home life, if I can get people to say yes to me more frequently, is certainly calmer and happier. And I think my boys and my husband would say the same about me. And so influence is really, and persuasion, it's really just about getting people to say yes. And there are lots of ways you can do that, right? You can use money, give someone some money and give them a bonus that'll make them more likely to do what you want. Whole regimes are built around force and violence to force people to do the things that we want. But Dr. Cialdini's research focuses on ethical persuasion, and that's using words and actions to convince people to come alongside to a certain point of view. So he
Wow.
came up with this research, as I said, in the 80s. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman had done some work figuring out how our brains work, sort of. He actually won the Nobel Prize in economics. Before he won the Nobel Prize, people thought that economies were run rationally and that humans made decisions, for the most part, rationally. But Kahneman's research demonstrated that our brains sort of run on two systems, system 1 and system 2. System 1 is that shortcut. If something costs more, it's probably better quality. We just have that shortcut. There's a lot of habit that goes on. It allows you to make quick decisions, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to make accurate decisions. Well, it turns out about 95% of our brains are running on that autopilot, that system 1, all the time. And so what Dr. Cialdini did is he researched the 7 principles that, sort of uncovered the 7 principles of persuasion that help us use that automatic brain to persuade people to say yes more often.
And that he has the book Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yes,
Is that right?
that's right. Exactly. That's
then
Kahneman's
I have read
book.
him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have read him. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's been some time.
And that's Daniel Kahneman, you said. So
That's Daniel
we'll
Kahneman.
link
So Daniel Kahneman came up with the research, and then
Okay.
Dr. Cialdini
Cialdini
took that research
pursued it.
and
Okay.
applied it.
Wow. Okay. We'll link to both of those books, Influence and Think Fast and Slow, for listeners if they want to check those out. And then Persuasion is also by Cialdini, right?
It is. That's right. He wrote
Okay.
that one.
We'll link to that one as
after.
well.
Yeah.
Okay. So ethical persuasion, that sounds like a oxymoron in some circles.
Yeah.
So why don't you help us define ethical persuasion, why it's ethical?
Right. So why it's ethical is there are a number of tests you can do, but basically if it's good for you and it's good for me. So I think that when you're trying to get someone to do something that isn't in their best interest, I'd call that manipulation. But what we're talking
Gotcha.
about here is persuasion. If it's good for you and it's good for me, then we're good to go.
It sounds like parenting a little bit.
Exactly. Yes. And I do
Trying
think
to-
you have
we-
to care about people a little
Well,
bit.
it sounds
it's
like
time to go to
win-win,
bed.
too. I mean, it sounds like win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
From
Okay. So maybe we should go through the 7 principles.
Sure.
What are the 7 principles?
Sure. So the first principle is reciprocity. And the principle of reciprocity states basically that if I give something to you, you are more likely to want to give something to me. If I give something to you first, you're more likely to want to give something to me. So for example, if I give you a birthday present, you are more likely to feel that obligation to give me a birthday present when my birthday comes along. Or if I invite you to a party at my house, you're more likely to feel that you should invite me to a party at your house. So that's the principle of reciprocity. And
Now that one applies kind of, I invite you to the expensive golf course. You're more likely to jump on a sales call with me or to buy, it's not necessarily
Right.
tit for tat is what I'm saying. It's reciprocity can be across domains, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me give you an example of this principle. I'm going to take a little more advanced. Well, let's start with an easier one. So they did a study in restaurants, and in the control group, they would have the waiter go. This is before the tip machines, where they do your credit card and you push the
Right.
buttons. I remember back in the day when you used to actually leave a
Right.
tip. And so the control group, the waiter goes up and says, thank you for eating here. Here's your bill. So they had a baseline of what tips they would get. Then in the first experimental group, the waiter would go with the bill, but they would put some mints, like some candies, on the tray. You've seen this before, right?
Yeah.
And what
Sure.
they found is just by putting those candies on the tray, tips went up 3%. Now, 3% doesn't sound like a lot, but if I'd told you that I could get you a raise tomorrow of 3%, you just had to give me a few mints, you'd probably be on board with
Good.
that.
Sure.
But it gets better because they then had the waiter go in the second experimental case, they had the waiter go and give, instead of on the tray with the mints, they would put a mint in front of each of the guests. Well, tips went up 14%. And when they did a third test and they put mints on the tray, gave them the bill, walked away, and the waiter said, you know what, for you fine people, an extra mint, and gave 1 mint to each one, a second mint, tips went through the roof, over 20% increase. And so that illustrates the principle of reciprocity. Giving something unexpected. It's not about the size of the gift, but giving something unexpected and personal activates on this principle of reciprocity. And
Yeah.
I would bet you that most of those people didn't even realize they were giving more of a tip. Like if you asked me, oh, if you get a mint, do you tip higher? I would say no, of course not, because my rational brain doesn't think it. But what we're talking about is that system one brain, that sort of automatic human nature that just makes you say, oh, you gave to me,
Shortcut.
I should give
Yeah.
to you. Yeah.
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 You know, especially, I don't know, I think about ways that you can just separate yourself. Like that's one example of the reciprocity and influencing people. But it's also a way of separating yourself, right? Of like being diligent enough to go the extra mile, to be personable. And that is
Yeah.
such a big separator. Like I go to coffee shops frequently for meetings and different stuff like that. And there's one coffee shop in Oklahoma City that looks you in the eyes and asks you how you're doing and compliments you on something that you're
Yeah.
wearing. And then they ask you, what would you like? And then they give you, well, do you like it sweeter? Do you like it a little bit, bolder? Oh, okay, great. And then they say, why don't you have a seat? I'll bring you your coffee. You don't need to wait up here. I'll bring you your coffee. And then
Yeah.
they come and they bring it to you. And when they bring it to you, they say your name again. Here you go, Khalil. Is there anything else that I can get you?
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes a little bit more effort, sure. But now I go back to that coffee shop every time I have a meeting in Oklahoma City
I love
because
that.
it's a
And
great experience.
Yeah.
I love that example. And you're actually talking about a different principle there, which is the
Let's do it.
principle of liking. And so the principle of liking says that others will say yes to us more when they know we genuinely like them. And so you're describing that
Using
coffee
their
shop,
name.
they
Yeah.
are just acting on the principles of liking, like, crazy. They're paying so much attention to you. They're using your name. They're finding out your special needs. And so all of that allows us to increase the liking effect that's going on. And there's a lot of studies around building rapport. So even they did one at KPMG, which is an accounting firm, and they found that the relationship between the account managers, the ones that had weak relationships would get agreement to a specific offer 30% of the time. The ones who had strong relationships would get thank you or agreement, 70% of the time.
Wow.
So huge difference just because
Yeah.
we have a stronger relationship.
And so what does that look like in terms of what are some things that maybe Robert talks about in terms of liking people? Because sometimes people are hard to like.
Yeah, sometimes people are hard to like. But what he does suggest is just finding similarities. So even if you're not crazy about that person, do your homework, figure out what you have in common. And if you can find things in common, that will generally activate on the liking. And there's so many things you can go with. Also, giving genuine compliments, as you were
Yeah.
pointing out. Just not faking and not being obsequious, but just a genuine like, wow, I really like that shirt that you have on today, or oh, I prefer my coffee that way as well. Just finding those common grounds will
Right.
help a lot with liking.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Okay. I don't know if we took you out of order by me giving my example
Not
here,
at all.
but reciprocity, liking. Let's go to the next principle.
Sure. Well, the next one, and these three all work together. You didn't stray at all, because these three work under the category of sort of relationship, building relationship.
Okay.
So reciprocity, I give to you, you give to me. Liking, that's where we activate on our commonality. Unity is a principle. He actually didn't codify this one until the 2000s. He found this one later,
Oh.
but felt that it had to be added because it's just such a strong piece. And it's sort of, in some ways, it can be complicated to differentiate between liking and unity. Unity is sort of creating that sense of we-ness and togetherness, and we're on the same team. And the way I would describe unity when we talk about that is, well, here we have a hockey team called the Vancouver Canucks, where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a fan of the Canucks and you're a fan of the Canucks, well, that would be activating on liking, right? We have something in common. But if we're both on the Canucks, that's unity. That's us being on the same team together. So
Does that apply? One place I see that is business owners. Groups of business owners have so much to identify with, and And when we're working with coaching, the fact that others, even if they don't know them yet, I don't know if this applies here, but that they're not the only ones who has that emotion, response, reaction, feeling, I'm no good. Well, yeah, you are. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I think what you're
Completely.
describing, we're all in this cohort of business owners, and
Yeah.
that's something we have in common, and that's liking. If you put us in a peer networking group or a peer advice group, then we'd be on the same team. Might even give
Okay.
ourselves a name. You know, I'm going to meet with the so and so group, and then that brings us into unity because we're all in it together.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a really powerful one that you should leverage with your team, right? Not just with external people, but literally inside your company, right?
Absolutely, because you definitely are a team there, or you should be. And one
Right.
way to create that unity bond or to start creating that unity bond is actually co-creation. So building
Okay.
something together. And you know, when you see those team building exercises and they're making things out of spaghetti and marshmallows or whatever, the point of that is they're trying to create that bonding team experience, that unity, the stories that you go back to because we were in those trenches together. But unity is hard to create right off the bat with clients, but there is actually, or suppliers or anyone else. There is one thing you can do though, which is instead of asking for people's opinions or feedback, ask them for advice. When you ask for an opinion or you ask for feedback, you're creating a critic. But when you ask for advice, now you're co-creating and you're
Mm.
both wanting to win. So asking for advice is one way to begin activating on unity because you're bringing the person onto your team.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So these three were relational principles.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there one other type or are there multiple other types?
There's two other types. There's
Okay.
relationship principles. It has to do with our core motives. And so there's relationship motives, uncertainty motives, and motivational motives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go through some of the uncertainty ones.
Sure. Great. So one of them is social proof. This one is pretty recognizable out there in the world. Um, you know, 4 out of 8 doctors recommend or getting stars on your
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
Google reviews, that kind of thing. That's social proof. And so social proof says that we are more likely to do something when others that are like us also do that thing. So just, I mean, I think we've all seen this so much out there in the world, but the studies are, again, I just find them really fascinating. So for example, one study, they were in South America, and they were talking to McDonald's franchises. And
Mm.
one McDonald's franchisor, so he owned a whole bunch of franchises. And the goal was to sell more dessert. So in the control case, you know, you walk up to the counter and say, hey, I'd like a burger and fries. And they would say, and would you like dessert? Okay, so that's the control. Then in the experimental case, people would walk up, I'll have my fries, my burger, and they would say, okay, would you like dessert? The McFlurry is our most popular. Okay, so they'd done their research, and it was
Social
true that the McFlurry was the most popular dessert. So it was ethical. They were just giving them additional information. 48% of sales went up 48% of desserts, just
Wow.
because they mentioned that other people like you buy the McFlurry, and then it's, oh, maybe I should buy the McFlurry, and away they
Wow.
did. Yeah,
That's really good.
yeah. So if you're
Okay.
thinking about, you know, working with clients, for example, and they're having trouble deciding on something, just telling them what's most popular can do a lot to get them over the line of actually making the decision instead of making no decision, which is also a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Or offering them too many options. Yeah.
Yes, and actually that research is out there as well. We got the jam stand study that you may have heard of, where, you know, if they have a jam stand where you can try them all, and people get choice, they can't do it. Like it's too many choices. Their brain
Yeah.
fritzes out. But if you
Yeah.
say here's 3, they'll pick the one they like.
Yeah. I've heard it on the colors of new cars.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah,
many, no, just give me black, white, and one other, red.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what's the other, I forgot what it was.
Principle. The
Uh,
principle of uncertainty
Uncertainty.
is,
Uncertainty motive. Okay. Gotcha.
so uncertainty. The other one is authority. So we do things
Okay.
where we see people that we think will have greater knowledge about something than we do. We'll rely on those with superior knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
And you go to the doctor's office and they've got the degree on the wall, and we just feel a little bit better. Don't know why, but there it is. But there's real power for this one in introductions. So the way your listeners could use this, I'll give you an example of a real estate agency in Great Britain.
Okay.
In the control group, people would phone in and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a commercial property in Chelsea." And the receptionist would say, "Oh, okay, I'll put you through to so-and-so." Okay, that's the control group. In the experimental group, they said, "I'll put you through to so-and-so. They have this many years letting properties in Chelsea. You're going to be in great hands." Okay, just that little introduction, 15.5% more contracts signed.
Wow.
Because somebody within the organization provided the credentials and gave that person the authority, just pointing out the authority. Again, doing it in an ethical way. They weren't making it up. It was true that that
Yeah.
person had that experience, but raising it to awareness was what made the difference.
Man, I mean, update your call scripts, people.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's all very simple, small changes that can have really big impact. There's two more principles under motivation. One is
Okay.
consistency, and the other is scarcity.
Okay.
So when we're talking about consistency, it's that people prefer to be consistent within themselves. So it's true that you should also be consistent. If you say you're going to do something, you should do it. But that's not the principle that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that once someone makes a small agreement, they are more likely to make a larger agreement along that path. An example of
So is that
consistent.
basically is where it's valuable to do? That's like, okay, I made an agreement to work with this HVAC contractor and they did a good job. Now I'm willing to maybe upgrade my entire system with that same person, or is that not the consistency principle?
It's more that if you said if you agreed to work with them, if you said yes, it's unlikely you'll back down from it afterward.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I really like this one actually, and I can't remember the percentages off the top of my head, but there was a drive safe campaign that they were trying to do in Palo Alto, California, where all the tech bros live. So really beautiful part of the world. And in the experimental group, they asked people if they would put a really big unsightly billboard in their front lawn that said "Drive safe." And so they were going door to door asking, and surprisingly, actually, 15% of people, or 17% said yes, that they would do that, which is
Okay.
when now it turns out afterward that those people were people who'd been involved in some way in a serious accident.
Sure.
But point is 17%. In a different group, also in Palo Alto, they ran around and asked people if they would support the Drive Safe campaign by putting a small, credit card sized Drive Safe sign either in their front window or in the front window of their vehicle. Most people said yes to that. That's a pretty easy yes. But they then went back to those people a couple weeks later and said, "Oh, I see you support the Drive Safe campaign. Could we put one of these large unsightly billboards," I'm sure they didn't put it that way, on your front lawn? And all of a sudden, 2/3 of people said yes. And
Wow.
it's because they were trying to be consistent.
Right.
Well, if I put up this, I should probably do that. And so the point of the principle of consistency is to really construct your arguments in such a way that we find a point of mutual agreement, and then you go beyond that to keep the person consistent with that point of agreement.
That feels the least ethical so far, I feel like. But maybe.
They're all persuasion. No, they're all persuasion. I've thought a lot about and written about force
Yeah.
versus persuasion, which is
Yeah.
not really the topic here, but how not just how people accept it, but anyway, yeah, that's taking it off. But a lot of people like the shortcut of making somebody do it, which
Well, okay, let me
especially
try.
in the realm of our employees. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
Let me try a different example for you, just so you
Sure.
can get the ethical sense here.
Sure,
So,
sure.
Gordon Sinclair had a restaurant in Chicago, fantastic restaurant, did really well. However, it was reservation only. And this is
Okay.
back in the day before we did the reservations on our phone. Well, we did on the phone, but we spoke to a human.
Telephone. Yeah.
And telephone. And so the problem in this restaurant was no-shows, because it's not like there's a line of people waiting for those tables. And they actually had a 30% no-show rate, which is
Ooh.
that's big. Like, that's going to eat all
Yeah.
your profits. So Gordon Sinclair was a student of Dr. Cialdini. He was very interested in his work. And so he started looking at how to resolve this. And what he found is his receptionist, when people were phoning in to book, she would say, please call, at the end of the call, 4 people this day, this time. She would say, please call if you have to change or cancel your reservation. Well, he made one small change to that script. And instead of saying, please call, she said, will you please call if you have to change or cancel your reservation? And just by adding those 2 words and then a pause to wait for the person to agree, that's the only change they made. No-shows went from 30% to 10%.
So they changed it from a command to a question where they participated and made a choice.
They made a choice, and then people are very more inclined to behave consistently with what they said they would do. They're activating on this automatic kind of thing we have going on in our brain. It was good for both the client and the restaurant owner. It wasn't manipulation. He was just trying to fix his no-show problem.
Well, and he was giving him a choice. Very definitely. It was their option to say, yeah, I will, or no, I won't.
Yes, and that choice piece is also a big part of the consistency principle.
Right.
When you allow people to choose. They did a study in France where people were panhandling, and one case they said, will you give me money? The other one they said, please give me money, but of course it's your choice. And way more people gave to the person who said, but of course it's your choice. Even though of course it's my choice. Like, it is my choice. I know it's my choice intellectually, but by being given that permission, it made the person more likely to give.
Wow.
Can we, this is brilliant, and I know people who are listening, I can envision them, if that's a word. Could we maybe come up with, Khalil, you said everybody change your script, but something that people, without going down and getting the books, they can say, here are 3 things to do in my script, and here's another easy one, which is reciprocity. Some things that they could just go, wow, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
And then being consistent, they'll see results and go deeper.
We can. I'm going to put a pin in that, Martin, because we have one more principle. Can we finish scarcity?
I jumped ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. We will do that.
Well, scarcity is that people want things more when they think they can't have them. So, the Concorde, they stopped flying the Concorde because it wasn't economic anymore, because people weren't flying on the Concorde. And when they announced we're not going to fly the Concorde anymore, of course, everyone went crazy trying to get a seat on the Concorde. There'll be, some fancy cupcake place where they won't sell enough cupcakes because who's paying $5 for a cupcake? But all of a sudden there's this cult following and they're paying $500 for a cupcake. And who'd pay $500 for a cupcake? But it's because of the scarcity principle. So when we have limited amounts or for a limited time, that motivates people to action in general.
Yeah.
A sales manager, national sales manager for my father's company a long time ago, talking about the principles of the sales. And he said, number one thing, you can't get it anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
He said, that's the position I want to be. Where I've got the last one. Anyway, that's a side.
But you're exactly right. And less quantity is actually more persuasive than limited time. But this also applies in interesting, weird ways. They did one study with a pizza chain. They made pizzas.
Yeah.
And so originally the pizza place was selling pizzas like you get this base margarita pizza. It's got got, cheese and tomato sauce and that's it. And then the customer would add the toppings. I want mushrooms, I want pepperoni, I want green pepper, whatever you want. And the average pizza in that case was selling for, I believe it was $14. They changed that. And instead of selling an empty pizza that you fill, they started by selling a full pizza that you emptied. Well, now people thought they had that thing. So they would only take the things off that they really didn't like, but they felt like they were giving something up. So the average price went from the average sale went from $14 to $16 because they already had that thing. They didn't want to lose it. And 14 to 16, not a big deal, except multiply that over millions of pizzas, right? And it becomes a huge deal. Yeah.
No, that's really
we're
good.
all about paying attention to the small things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That on that one too, you see Amazon a lot, only 2 left.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
however, I doubt.
You doubt that it's only 2 left, is what you're saying?
I'm a cynic at Amazon because I purchased more than 2. So, but anyway, it's obvious what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
I just
and so that's the limited quantity. And then the other thing I think your listeners can apply as well, though, because sometimes quantity isn't limited and we don't want to be unethical about it. But what we can do is inform people what they stand to lose if they don't make the choice. So, you don't have to renovate your house this week or this month or this year. Like you're able to choose that. You have control over that. If you don't, though, the odds are prices are going to go up when it comes to lumber and this and that. And I don't have control over that. I'm just the contractor. I don't go cut the trees down. So you're free to choose, but this is what you stand to lose. Now we're activating on a couple of different principles there. And that becomes even more powerful.
Well, and there's so many. We had a guest once upon a time on John Hill, and he's a great salesman, but he would just talk about, he's selling pergolas in the backyard and really just a backyard experience more than just a pergola.
Exactly.
And he would just talk about how the weather's about to be nice and you're not going to have a shaded area for you to sit in. And it's going to be another summer where you're stuck inside wondering what we're going to do today.
What we could have had.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's exactly scarcity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he could also, just to add to that example, what he could have done is, first of all, some reciprocity and some liking and getting to know what the people really want. And then you get into this place where you can talk about social proof, like, well, other people like you have enjoyed it in this way. And then you can get into the authority. In fact, we've built this many pergolas in so many yards. Right. And then you can get into consistency. So do you enjoy spending time with your family in the yard? Oh, yeah. Is that right? And so now, if you enjoy that, wouldn't it be terrible if this whole summer went by and you were out in the mosquitoes and et cetera? So you can see how these things stack.
And grandkids are 1 year older.
Yes, that's right.
We're closer to leaving home.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's so good. Okay, let's do a really quick recap. So I'm forgetting what you said these were, but there's 3. There's relationships, there's uncertainty,
the core,
and motivational.
Yeah, so that's actually from a researcher, Neidert, and those are core motives. So they're groups of core motives. And so there's relationship, uncertainty, and motivation. Underneath relationship, we have reciprocity, liking, and unity.
Okay.
Under uncertainty, we have social proof and authority. And under motivation, we have consistency and scarcity.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody who's really good will use all of them.
Well, I'll put it this way. There's application for at least one of these principles in any persuasion situation.
Yeah. Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later? Transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is. OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode. Okay, so Martin was talking about going through these one by one, and I want to do that and apply it to our audience. But before we jump into that, I want to hear more about what you do on a day-to-day basis with contractors. And
Sure.
then maybe we can talk about how you help apply some of these principles in those things. If you do, if you don't, no big deal. But let's hear a little bit about what you do, Tara.
Sure. So my company, Bellrock, has been around since 2008, and we help smaller businesses, typically 1 to 100 million in revenue, with implementing foundational systems. So what I mean
what
by
is a
that
foundational
are,
system?
yeah, it's the basic systems and processes to help that business run. So usually starting at about 10 people, companies will start needing to have systems and processes put in, PO systems or some sort of financial controls or, excuse me, job descriptions or performance evaluation systems, things of that nature, communication processes within the organization. So my company identifies what those principles are and helps implement those systems. So actually documenting them, training them, having people use them in that organization. We also run a management training program where we train people how to become the best managers ever. And within that umbrella of work, this persuasion stuff is, as I said, it's a rabbit hole that I have jumped down with both feet because it applies to all of these things. It
Everything,
applies to
yeah.
managers
I'm just thinking,
trying to get people to do stuff and salespeople and just, trying to get your bank to do something. It doesn't matter what it is. It applies to all of our human activities that we do.
yeah, absolutely. How do you get the people to use the PO system? Well, you've got to influence them. How do you get people to apply to the job? Well, you've got to influence them to want to work there. I mean, there's so many different things.
Threatening people is probably not one of the, that's if everything else doesn't work.
Well,
you use the PO system or you're gone.
The thing is, it works, but it doesn't stick.
Right. No.
So if you don't use the PO system, I'm going to start shoving something under your fingernails and, making life horrible for you. Well, that'll work for a bit, but it's not going to stick. They're going to leave.
Right. They're going yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So maybe Martin and I can think of some different use cases or real situations that some of our clients are in or people we know. And then you can help us either one, talk about a system that you might implement. Obviously, it's going to be very base level. You probably need more depth to really get into the weeds of it, but things that come to mind. And then also how you might apply one of the principles. This is ad hoc. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so I've got
one.
Okay, go ahead, Martin. You start.
Well, mine is a little outside of what people might be thinking here in sales and persuading people to do business with us. But I have a number of clients, and one in particular, who have people. Their problem is culture, okay? And they have people who are very capable in their jobs, but they're not good. They don't play well with others and create turmoil all the time. And we're very much faced with this idea of this person is either going to have to go or we're going to have to fix this. And we don't want them to go because they have skills and talents. So how can we, if this is appropriate, how can we bring this person around to the role or to being a team member as opposed to somebody who is, I don't want to say resentful, but really thinks they know it all, know they have talent, and they don't want to suffer suggestions, let alone suffering fools. So any ideas on how to approach someone like that?
Yeah, well, it's a super common problem, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll refer to those people as toxic A players. So they, from a productivity perspective, they're fantastic. The problem is the trail of bodies that they're leaving behind them as they get that productivity. And I'll say, first of all, that it's really hard to change somebody who doesn't want to change. So if our issue on that culture side is, they don't care, you're going to have a heck of a time. But if you can find, and I might choose, well, all sorts of principles, but where my head is going with this one is finding that point of mutual agreement. So finding what's good in it for both of us, and then activating on consistency to try to bring that person alongside to see things from a different perspective. So they believe that they're really great at their job, which they are, but they don't believe that a team is really important. Well, let's try to bring them alongside to how a team is important. Hey, you couldn't even do this work if someone else didn't sell it. Hey, you couldn't even do this work if so-and-so wasn't swinging the hammer. You couldn't even do this work if we didn't have those subtrades, and sort of get them to understand that they're part of an ecosystem, if that's possible.
Yeah, I like that. If Buckingham and Kaufman, first break all the rules, guys.
Yep.
Basically, they say you can't change those elements.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
you can, but they have to want to.
No, well, that's what I mean. If they don't want, and they also say that we have those elements within us, how our hows and whys and how we approach relationship, and we're not going to change. Mm-hmm. And I like to think I'm rational, and if I understand why, I will. But anyway, that's just a problem that if you can patent the solution, I'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, so this kind of plays on that same concept, but rather than thinking about it as like that single person, I know roofing company, they really struggle in Oklahoma where it's very much a storm-driven roofing economy where big hailstorm comes, roofers pop out of the woodworks. No storms for a while, places are shutting down and moving on to other stuff. And the model is to have these salespeople that go out, sell the job, but are also in charge of somewhat managing the job. They're not doing any of the work, but they got to make sure the crew shows up, materials are delivered, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really hard to get these people to stay because if they essentially can find a crew to subcontract to, they can start their own business and do the same thing. How can you set up your culture, your company, your systems to be able to keep those people rather than having them go out?
Oh my gosh, there's so many answers to that question.
Oh, I know. It's a big one. It's a big loaded one. But what comes to mind? I'm curious.
Well, the thing that first came to mind with me was Outback Steakhouse. So what Outback Steakhouse did, they also had I know this sounds crazy, we're roofers in Outback Steakhouse, but it's actually a similar problem where they'd have people rise up the ranks, and as soon as when they got to that manager kind of level, they'd leave and start their own restaurant because they'd learned everything they needed to learn at that point. And so what Outback did is they created sort of a path to ownership. So a path to owning that restaurant that they had that manager in so that they could own a piece of that work, which then disincentivized them from also taking on all of the headaches of advertising and, doing the bookkeeping and all of the other pieces. And so with your roofers, that's the first thing that came to mind for me is if this person is going to go out and do it on their own, we want to contrast with them or for them, like make them really aware of what the headaches are of having your own business.
How hard could it be?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, all your time off. Yeah.
And even teach them how to, run that business. Also, I think creating that culture and that sense of unity. Like there's us and them, which is a very powerful mental model that people use all the time. And so we here at our roofing company, we do it a certain way and we're really awesome and we've got all these things. We don't want to be like those people. And so they might be less incentivized to leave because they want to stay with the team. You're referencing Marcus Buckingham before. He talks about people don't work for their company. They work for their managers and for their colleagues. That's who
Yeah.
they work for. That's who they want to belong to.
Mhm.
And so keeping them engaged in that from a culture perspective would be really helpful, I think, in the scenario you're putting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's shift more to customers. We talked a little bit about employees, and there's so
Okay.
much we can go on there. I love that answer, though. Um, let's go into more of the customer side of things. What
Yep.
I am struggling to raise prices, right? I feel like I'm not going to be able to do it, and I'm going to lose all the work. People are going to say no. There's they're going to undercut me. The competition's going to undercut me. What's kind of the thought process there? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
Yeah, well, honestly, again, just first thing that comes to mind there is, well, try raising your prices by 3% and see what happens. Like, just
Yeah.
give it a shot, because yeah,
That's
there
what
you
that
go.
book is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just do it, is my first thought. So I agree. But in addition, using that scarcity principle and explaining what the customer has to lose. So I know how hard it is for small contractors to differentiate themselves. You know, they all say, well, we have the best people, or we're the best quality, or whatever. It's very hard to actually prove that. But when you get sort of social proof working in your favor, so you've got testimonials and you've got references, which gives you some authority. And then if you can start explaining what they would stand to lose if they don't work with you, price becomes less of an issue. Not a non-issue, but less of an issue. People are usually, so there are some people who are just looking for the lowest price. And those people will
And
always do that.
we
And
don't
those
want to work with them.
well, or maybe you do. I mean, that's up to
Well,
you, as long as you
usually we
recognize
don't.
it's a choice you're making,
Yeah.
right? But if you choose to not target that piece of the market, if we say, yeah, if I win one, great, but I'm not going to target that piece of the market. I want to target the piece of the market that what? Maybe you're a home builder and you want to target, like, small young growing families. And so you build up a portfolio of work where you can show, look, we provide this outsized value. We understand your needs, this, that, and the other. Now you've got liking and some social proof and some authority.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you can go with that other contractor. I mean, they build all sorts of things. We focus just on what you want. We only make pergolas, or we
Yeah.
only do this, or whatever it is.
No, that's good. It's really good.
I have found a universal USP for anybody who wants to distinguish themselves, and it is, we are the communication company.
Yeah.
And then prove it. Call them
Well,
every Friday to tell them what's going on. Anyway, sorry.
No, I agree. I agree that if they actually do it, that would be a good one.
They have to do it. If
But
they
they
don't do
have
it,
to
they're
do
worse
it.
off than if they, yeah. And that's why
Exactly.
it's hard to do, and that's why it's available
Yeah.
as a USP.
Yeah.
So I think Martin, you were thinking about, like, what's one thing they can actually go do and all that kind of stuff. I think, I mentioned call scripts earlier, and a lot of companies don't even have call scripts, right? So maybe just going and writing a call script.
Can you think of one or two, and we can put an ending? I'm literally thinking of a guy who's driving and listening and goes, I'm going to do that, and I can remember it. I mean, a gift they can remember.
A gift. And the thing about the gift, I really like the gift one. So, and making it meaningful and personal to that person, but it doesn't have to be big. One of the mistakes, one of the bungles people do when it comes to influence, especially when it comes to these gifts, is they think swag is a gift.
Okay, I was going to say swag. Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
If I give you something with my brand on it, it's not a gift unless I make it personal and meaningful. And let me give you a very specific example. See this pen? This pen has my company's name on it. Okay. So it is swag. But let me tell you the story of this pen. I was working with a promotional products company for about 4 months, and I had them bring me all of the pens that they had available at a certain price point. And then for 4 months, I sat there with those pens. I like this one. I don't like this one. I like this one. I don't like this one. And I narrowed it down to the best pen. And so now all I use are these. These are the best pens. I've got a pen for you if you need a pen. Well, that's a gift, even though it's got my company's name on it, because it's the best pen. And I can't tell you, because I haven't counted and I wish I did, how many people ask us for more pens.
Yeah.
Sorry, but the pen ran out. Do you have another? Can I get another pen?
I'm a pen aficionado. You know, a lot of the swag is like Mitch Hedberg said, you give it to them and it's like you're telling them, here, you throw this away for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I get pens. I mean, since you use that, I get pens from the bank and stuff. You can't even, it's just like, you ruined my day.
Yeah, but even good quality swag is just swag until you make it personal and special.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think especially nowadays, you can even, if you're business to business at least, you can do swag that is their company swag.
Exactly.
It's very easy to do that. And I think that's a great way to, oh, wow, I got a, new, something I'm working on. Maybe they'll listen to this. I don't know. I'm going to get them company pajamas, where it's going to have it's not just going to be a logo there. It's going to be the whole thing is like a pattern of their company name.
Wow.
And it's not that, I mean, I'm spending like $120 on these for 4 different sets. They're a good client. So I'll do it. So
there's so many things you can do to make something personal. And it doesn't even have to be big. Knowing the kind of tea that person particularly likes and picking it up. And to say, oh, I thought of you. Yeah. That's it. Not, oh, happy birthday or none of that stuff. Just, I thought of you. And here's a demonstration of that. Even reading an article and going, who'd find that really interesting? John, I was reading this article and I thought of you. And now John reads it and it's like, wow, yeah, that really resonates. That in of itself could be a gift. Doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely. That's so good. One thing I think a really easy exercise that people can do if they want to explore this more, and maybe we'll put a prompt together, but just go to AI and say, hey, this is my company. This is what I do. How can I apply these 7 principles to this area of my company? And then basically anytime you have a specific challenge in mind right now, how do the 7 principles from Robert Cialdini apply to this situation? And I'm sure you're going to get loads of great ideas. Man, that's wonderful. So I think a lot of our companies, a lot of the companies that are listening to this podcast could find a great value in your services. So how can we find Bellrock? How can we get engaged with you?
Yeah, well, we're at www.bellrock.ca, first of all. So, and there's lots of download. CA, we're in Canada, but we work with Americans too.
Absolutely.
I don't know what kind of tariffs they'll put on us, but so we're a .ca, and we have a management training program that I think people find very helpful. But on the website, we also have a ton of free downloadables and resources and blog posts that you can just do a quick search, and whatever your problem is, you'll probably find something that will be helpful right away.
That's great. Was there any one of those that come to mind based on what we talked about that's on the website?
Yeah. Well, Martin and I were talking earlier about our guide to one-on-one meetings. Yeah, so it's sort of everything you need to know about one-on-ones, but we're afraid to ask. And the bottom line is, yes, they do work, especially if you want to activate on relationship when it comes to persuasion and reciprocity and liking and unity. The one-on-one, regularly scheduled, rarely missed, ideally face-to-face one-on-one meeting is the shortcut to activating on relationship and making sure that you're using those motivational principles.
That's great. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for all of our listeners so that they can do better one-on-ones or start doing one-on-ones and understand how powerful they are. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. We'll put a link to the website in general as well. Martin, is that what you were basically going to say?
No, I was going to ask, I've downloaded it and reprinted it on my phone. I want to find it again. And I couldn't quickly before you got on. But
well, then go to the show notes of this episode, Martin, and you'll find it.
That's where I'm going. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. If Martin wants the resource, then every single one of the listeners should want this resource as well. So, Tara, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking about the principles and for sharing so many great examples. I'm sure our audience loved it, and we'll definitely have to have you back.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I had a great
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory, it's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. Would love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.